Hey you! Are you short on cash with way too much free time in your hands? Do you like high-octane battles with little to no breaks in between? What about the endless looming threat of inevitable death around every corner? Well, if you've answered yes to even a part of those statements, Grizzco part-time work is most definitely what you've been missing in your life in the Splatlands. Just hop on down to the Grizzco buildings located in both Splatsville and Inkopolis to get started straight away. Minimum training required. But if you want to get good results and above average rewards, you'll need a little bit more than minimum training. Luckily, I consider myself to be somewhat competent in Salmon Run, so I can help you out with some tricks and strategies I use every time I get an itch to collect some golden eggs. If everything goes well, you'll be able to get up to Executive VP in no time. And if this video does end up helping you out, think about giving it a like and share it with some of your coworkers. Mr. Grizz needs all the help he can get for whatever it is he uses these eggs for. I want to start off with one of the most important tips for this mode. Always look at your surroundings and act accordingly. Salmon Run is the most chaotic and disorderly mode in Splatoon, and it gives you no breaks at higher levels. Every single boss that spawns will create a new challenge for you to deal with, even if it seems like something minor at first. So, before you jump headfirst into anything, make sure you have an escape route and enough ink to survive, even before the start of rounds. Before a wave starts, the water on the little graphic shows where the tide will be. If it's low, make your way down to the shoreline because the water will be lower. If it's in the middle, stay where you are, and if it's high, stay away from the water because it will rise, and quickly. With that out of the way, the only way you're going to rise to the rankings is by collecting golden eggs, and the only way to do that is by defeating boss salmonids. Sounds simple, right? Since each boss drops 3 eggs, with exception to some of the Nightwave bosses, it can be tricky to get all the eggs back by yourself. There's a few tricks to collecting each of those eggs that I use to make things really efficient. One is by luring bosses closer to the basket, and another is just tossing eggs closer to it. Some boss salmonids can be easily lured to the basket, like scrappers, maws, and flipper floppers. Luring these bosses is a better idea if there aren't as many other bosses around to cause havoc. If you think the basket will get too overwhelmed, it's better to only lure partly or not at all. Speaking of luring partly, it's even more efficient to lure bosses partway instead of fully. Time spent getting the bosses right in front of the basket can be used much better by throwing dropped eggs at a distance into the basket. So try to get in the habit of throwing eggs a lot. All other bosses, aside from the 3 I talked about earlier, can't be lured, and if they can be, it's not ideal to do it. When you're far away from the basket and can only carry a single egg at a time, the amount you can gather in 100 seconds seems very limited. However, if you constantly inch eggs closer to the basket by tossing them, high scores will just start rolling in like nothing. Since throwing eggs uses 3/4 of your egg tank, you can throw one, pick up another, and move forward, and as you're moving forward, your tank refills and you can throw again. When you squid roll, you recover just as much ink as you would be by standing still, so the extra movement helps you avoid getting splattered while throwing. This is why on streams you'll see me doing it constantly. Also, throwing eggs deals 100 damage to nearby salmonids, so you can get through any chums or small fry relatively easily while still working on egg movement. Of course, throwing has its downsides too. If there's too many salmonids in one area, it would be best to try and clear them out before you try to transfer eggs. That ink consumption can be brutal at times. None of the Salmon Run bosses are really difficult to deal with if you know how to deal with them. It's only when a bunch of them are paired up that it becomes a problem. The maximum amount of bosses that can be active at one time is 15, with a max of 3 of one type at once. You'll start seeing 15 at high hazard levels, so be prepared. In my opinion, there are some bosses that should be dealt with immediately, and others that can be left alone for a bit. I'll start off by giving you the bosses on my must be defeated at all costs list. Flyfish. Like in multiplayer battles, Tentamissiles are a massive issue, especially when paired with hundreds of other threats at once. It shoots 4 missiles at the player nearest to it, and 4 other missiles at a random player. Take them out by throwing a bomb in each of the launchers. This can be done by yourself, but it's easier if another player helps you out because of Splat Bomb ink consumption. Oh, and there's this really cool exploit you can do by just using a single bomb. If the flyfish is near a ledge and you throw a bomb right in front of it on that ledge, you can instantly take it out when it tries to fire. Basically, if you make an explosion happen anywhere in front of it, it'll crash down. Like if you manage to explode a bomb off of a Slamonlid shield. Bye-bye, flyby. Any explosion can destroy the launchers, including the Explosher, the crab tank's bombs, and the ink jet. Ink strikes and killer whales can pierce the cockpit, so use them if you're in a pinch. People seem to forget about their specials, so remember not to be afraid to use them. Stingers are next on the list. Their attacks go straight through the entire map, targeting the furthest player away. When multiple are on the field at once, cry. Fast firing rate weapons and blasters are the best to use to take them out, but if you're nearby, it's best to get rid of them no matter what weapon you're using, even if it's a slow charger. They're easy to deal with, but when they're really far away, it makes them extremely annoying to take out. Next is big shots. I find that once one spawns, more always follow. They launch cannonballs from the shoreline and aim for the egg basket. You can jump over their attacks, but you'll need to do a lot of jumping while putting eggs in the basket, and avoiding every other attack coming your way. Taking them out is easy, and then you can use their cannon to launch golden eggs towards the basket. I will say though, if you notice multiple people at the cannon, try to move towards the egg basket yourself. The amount of times I've been trying to load the cannon while nobody actually delivers the eggs is maddening. Remember, eggs near the basket aren't in the basket. Snatchers can easily take those eggs like it's nothing. One last boss you should watch out for is the Drizzler. While they might not seem too dangerous, if you let their ink storms out, they'll chip your health down and take you out very easily. Even if you can't defeat them right away, if you can at least pop their balloons, do it. It'll make life a lot easier. Every other boss has things that you should watch out for as well, like the Salmon Lid's spawning of lessers, the fish sticks hindering movement and ink recovery, and Steel Eel just getting in your way at the worst possible times. All I can really say is to use whatever you can to your advantage, like hopping on the fish sticks poles, or the lids of Salmon Lids. Just don't stay on Salmon Lids for too long. They get uncomfortable after a while. But what if you end up letting those bosses get the best of you? There's nothing more stressful in Salmon Run than seeing one player remaining and it's you. If this happens, I find it best to first and foremost get away from all bosses and regroup. Then, when you're safe, try to find your teammates and try to hit their life preservers. Throw a bomb if you need to, or activate a special. If you throw out something that has a chance to hit your teammate, the game won't end as long as it's out, even if you get splatted in the process. There is an exception though. While this works for bombs and Killer Whale, it doesn't work with Wavebreaker, literally the best special for saving people. Like, look at this clip I got from a while ago. This is bullshit! Using these strategies for the special nighttime waves, their official name being known occurrences, won't work too well because of how different they are. The one that's the most similar is fog waves, since it's virtually the same as a normal wave except you can't see as far, and also there's some goldies that go around. Make sure you communicate with your teammates and try to keep things under control by taking out as many bosses as you can. Now, let's get to the tricky ones. Glowflies! In my opinion, this is one of the hardest waves in Salmon Run. There's just no time to rest, and if one person needs to refill ink, you're at a massive disadvantage. There's a few ways to tackle the endless hordes, but in freelance, I'd say the best way is to get everyone together and let the person with glowflies hang on a wall where the salmonids can't reach them, while everyone else just takes out the swarm below. If you're on a stage without any ledges, just stay close together and don't stop attacking. Most rollers have the ability to instantly splat those chums since their health is lower, so use that if a roller is in the rotation. Other than that, pray that you have a team with good synergy. Though I feel like that's a good strategy for any Salmon Run shift. I mean, you don't have a good team. I'm so sorry. Only 2 grillers can spawn at a time during griller waves, but don't underestimate them. Stay close to the basket and try to stun the grillers when they get close. If you have a fast weapon or a roller, make sure you take out the small fry that spawn under the grillers. I find that they're really what cause me and my team problems. And also, if you have a bunch of eggs in a pile that you just can't reach because of the amounts of enemies, try to lure the grillers away so your team can focus on egg retrieval. When a school of Cahoks show up on the shore, it's best for 2 players to stay in the cannons for a majority of the wave. Cahoks are really annoying to take out, and the cannon fire instantly splats them. They can also take out bosses in a flash, so really the people out in the field should just be egg collectors. And make sure to use and look out for this waves from people. It's a good way to direct cannons to shoot at massive groups. Goalie seeking is fairly straightforward. Spread out, follow the light from the gushers, and wail on that goalie when it appears. The amount of light that appears from the gushers directly correlate to where the goalie's location is. The more light there is, the goalie's closer. Mothership waves are also simple. Spread out, destroy Chinooks, deliver eggs. On high tide, this occurrence is where you'll get massive amounts of eggs since everything is closer together. Just remember not to get overwhelmed by salmonids, as that can happen if you're careless. Mudmouth eruptions are just fun. Taking these guys out is similar to grillers and flyfish, now that I think about it. Have one teammate take the salmonids that spawn, and then throw bombs into the mudmouth's muddy mouths. They're damaged the same way as flyfish are, so just go wild. And aim for the bottom of their mouths, because that's where their hitbox is. And last but certainly not least, the giant tornado waves. Again, another straightforward wave. Make sure you move all the eggs up at one time and take out any salmonids in your way. An interesting thing about this mode that I've never been able to do myself is that one player can lure away every salmonid and then no more can spawn. This makes it very easy for teammates to move the eggs, although it's difficult to draw attention to yourself without trigger-happy teammates getting in the way. I mean, just go with the flow and you'll be fine, really. The last thing I want to talk about is the big kahunas, the harbingers of chaos, the king salmonids. As I'm making this video, there are only 2. Kohozuna and Horoboros. I find it best for the person with the highest damage per second weapon to constantly attack him while everyone else focuses on the bosses around the map. Then use the eggs to deal damage to him. Don't be afraid to use the eggs on lesser bosses too. The egg cannons do 800 damage and can quickly turn 1 egg into 3 with the right aim. Do the exact same for Ouroboros, except try to aim for the Booyah Bomb it charges in its mouth. If you manage to pop it, it does a massive amount of damage. Also, if you somehow manage to hit it with a Reef Slider from up high, it also does a huge amount of damage. I'm not entirely sure why this works, but it does. And it makes Ouroboros much easier than Kohazuna, in my opinion. So, have you written all that down? It's alright if you haven't. Really, the best way to get better at something is to get out there and work in the midst of hell itself. Like I said, Salmon Run is not easy, and it may take a while for you to really get the hang of it. Once you get the movement down and build up some instincts, everything will come naturally. You'll be able to get to Executive VP just like that. Imagine how many more rewards you'll receive! It's the exact same as when you were part-timer. Thanks, Grizko. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I just wanted to add a little bit of extra context at the end here. While recording footage for this video, I ended up looking for a Goldie Rush wave for so long that I ended up doing over 50 shifts, more than 150 total waves, collected 6 golden scales, and successfully completed my first hazard level max, where the Goldie Rush actually happened. I mean, say what you want about those god-awful odds, but that's poetic. I'll upload the entire hazard level game in the coming days so you can see how crazy it is. And on a completely unrelated note, does anyone know how easy it would be to form a union?